turn.
Hello everyone, this is Pluto. Welcome back to another video. And in this video, I'm in Ravenwood today. I am going to be giving my take on the best stool in Wizard101, and I'm going to be ranking the stools from the worst to the best. If you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers before the summer, so if you could please help me out, like and subscribe the video right now, I'd be greatly appreciated. It helps me out tremendously. Thank you so much. So let's just jump right into it. So I feel the need to preface this video by saying that this is not a definitive list. This list is not the definitive best or worst stools. It's more of me just rambling about what I think about each stool and my opinions on it. And in terms of my least favorite stool right now, it has to be Ice. Now, Ice is at the bottom simply because of their damage. Now, damage would not be necessarily an issue if they made up for it in terms of survivability, but I don't think even Ice has that survivability anymore. Enemies in worlds above, like Imperia, have so much pierce that it basically negates their little resist gimmick that Ice has, and health doesn't really matter anymore. Right? It doesn't really matter if you can get extreme amounts of health, because pretty much every stool can get extreme amounts of health because of the new health jewels on our gear. We have the new square sockets, so we have new health jewels, which means that it doesn't really matter. Health isn't really a gimmick. Now, if you're doing decathlon with Ice, it's a very good stool. Ice and Life are very good stools for decathlon to do it on, because you can use the square jewels on things like your deck. Other than that, Ice doesn't really have anything to offer to the table. Their spells do very low damage, and they don't get much damage as a stat until late game, and even in the late game, their damage is very minimal. You would pretty much never pick an Ice as a hitter, and I wouldn't even pick an Ice as a support. I much rather supports like Balance, Death, Life, right? Ice is by far the least stool I'm most likely to pick as a support, and that's not because Ice is like terrible at supporting. It's just it doesn't really offer much to the table. You look at some of Death's really powerful spells. You have Bad Juju, right? Dark Pact. For Life, you have heals like Pigsy. And for Balance, you have Blade Storm. Ice doesn't get much of that. Ice doesn't get any of that. Its best spell is Tower Shield, and that can be used by pretty much any stool. And other than that, you don't really get anything. So that's why I think Ice is the worst stool in Wizard101, and I think that it's the last stool anyone should quest. Now, I don't mean to offend any Ice wizards and say that your stool is garbage. There are definitely uses for Ice. There's definitely uses in PvE. I'm sure it's probably better in PvP. I know it was one of the most broken stools in PvP for a while. I'm sure it's a good stool. I liked each stool. I think each stool is very unique, but I think that Ice just falls short. I think it's the worst stool in the game currently. Now, some of you may be surprised to see Balance this low on the list, considering I am questing a Balance on stream. I am currently streaming Balance questing. Nonetheless, I do have Balance at number 6 on the list, and the reason why Balance is so low is mainly because of the reasons I gave to Ice. When you look at what Balance has to offer, they offer Balance Blade. They offer Dragon Blades, right? Blade Storm, a bunch of cool unique spells, Balance Blade, right? They're cool spells and all. Do not get me wrong. But here's the thing with them. They're universal, which means that anyone could theoretically use those spells for the same reason that Ice could use Tower. The reason why Balance gets a little bit of a leg up is that they can train their Blade Storm. They can train them, so it's a little bit different. They do get a little bit of an edge in that arena because they can use different versions, whereas other stools may use item cards or treasure cards. Balance can have multiple of the same buff stacked, which means more damage at the end of the day. But looking at Balance as a support class, it can be essentially made worthless with just someone using Balance spells. When you look at Balance as a hidden class, you find the same problem. Balance is just not a good hidden stool. You can end up going against Balance bosses or even Balance elite mobs, and your hits will do no damage against them. I have seen the struggle on stream. I have seen the struggle of Balance. Now, you do have spells to circumvent that, like Hydra and Chimera later on. So you do have spells that can circumvent those worries, but overall, when you consider that balance doesn't even get a prism, and the fact that balance's spells do like the second least amount of damage in the game, you can really see that balance is not a good hitting stool, and it's unfortunately not a very good support stool either. So that's why balance lands at number 6 on my stool rankings. Now, I think I'm going to end up making a lot of people upset putting fire this low on the list, but at number 5, we do have the stool of fire. Now, I want to say the reason why fire is this low is because of the OTs, man. I mean, you look at these spells, how many of them are just overtimes? When I'm thinking of a hitting class, when I'm thinking of a hitter, I'm not thinking of, oh, I'm going to kill the enemy in 3 rounds, right? I'm thinking I'm going to kill the enemy as fast as I can. So that's why I pitch stools like Storm and Myth. Fire is kind of just like that weird wheel on the cart. Every wheel is perfect. Storm, Death, Myth. But Fire is just that last one that is just, yeah, we're going to kill the enemy in 3 turns. That doesn't make too much sense. Now, I know I'm already in the comments, but what about Stalled Incendiate? What about Stalled Incendiate? You don't have Stalled Incendiate for the majority of quests into the game. You can't actually really do Stalled Incendiate until Polaris, until you get your deck that gives you a pip. You can't really do it that efficiently. If you want to kill first turn, you may as well just spam your 4-pip AoE, because you'll be waiting for stalled anyways. You don't get stalled until Polaris because it's a 5-pip spell. You can't do that on the first turn until late game. Fire is still not very good, right? And another thing I wanted to say is I can't actually look at the spell here, but Fire Dragon. Fire Dragon is an overtime, which means that when you enchant it, half of the damage gets added to the first hit, half of it gets added to the overtime. That is single-handedly the thing that kills fire. They don't get a very good 7-pip AoE. Their Novus, or excuse me, Wallaroo spell AoE is better than their 7-pip AoE. I use that spell, I think it's called Phantasmania or whatever. I use that spell on my fire more than I use my Fire Dragon on my fire. Now, fire is not a worthless class by any means. They get high damage, they get high pierce, they have the capability to do a lot of damage with Stalled Incendiate. First of all, Stalled Incendiate is not very accessible to many players. You have to do decathlon for it. You need at least 2 people to do that strat. You can't just solo that, so that completely takes that out of the table. And on top of that, it's only really for late game players anyways. But yeah, that's why I would put Fire at number 5. The overtimes kind of kill it, and the fact that the only viable strat, in my opinion, for Fire is pretty much gate capped to hardcore players and high levels. That just brings Fire down entirely. I know there's a lot of Fire Wizards probably seething at this video. I'm sorry. I have a max Fire. I do enjoy playing as Fire. I just don't think it is as good as the other stools on this list. But yeah, let's move on to number 4. In at number 4, we do have the Stool of Life. Now, this was a really, really hard decision for me to put Life this low. I think all 4 of the remaining stools are really good, right? I think that, honestly, all 5, even Fire, should be considered a pretty good stool. I think that Life does come at the short end of the stick here, and now the reason that I think Life comes in short is because of their 4-pip AoE. Rat Spin, their hit for soloing, what have you, is locked behind Spellements, it's locked behind gold keys, and it's locked behind a paywall, basically, if you want to buy it in the Grizzleheim lore pack. Now, it's easier to get Rat Spin nowadays than it was back in the day, but I do find that a lot of Life Wizards still don't have it. And on top of that, it's not just their best 4-pip AoE. It is their best 4-pip heal AoE, too. Its Pigsy is also locked behind with the Wisteria pack, or the Wisteria Gold Key Boss. So 2 core supports, 1 core support spell for life and 1 core damage spell for life is locked behind gold keys and a paywall. This wasn't always going to be the case. You guys could have gotten Leaf Storm, but the PvP community, I like to think, hijacked the poll and picked the brown spider, infestation brown spider instead. They could have gotten a 4-pip AoE, but no. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Life really is in desperate need of a 4-pip AoE that is not Rat Spin. And I know in the new update that Life Wizards got a better AoE, right? They got their new 5-pip AoE. That's for level 170s. Questing through the game is more than just what you do in level 170. Right now, once you get that spell, you have one world to use it in, and then that's it. Pretty much, if you don't have Rat Spin, you have Forest Lord, but you have to wait until, I think, level 48, maybe 58 for that. So either way, you have to wait a while. One of the things that I think life is good at as a stool is I think that life is obviously a good healing stool. You have so many heals to have. You have Satyr, you have Unicorn, you have Dryad, you have Pidgey like I mentioned earlier, Sprite Swarm even too. You have a lot of spells at your disposal to heal people, and I think is very good in that regard. Life is kind of like ice. They have a lot of health. They're very survivable. They're very tankable, right? Now, I do think that the health is kind of lessened by this update, but they do have that health, and on top of that, they have pretty good damage. You can get pretty good damage on a Life Wizard. You can't get that on an Ice Wizard. You can't get that on a Balance Wizard. Life Wizards, they get damage on their hits. They get pretty good damage. I mean, Rat Spin basically does a meteor if you have it. Forest Lord is a really good hit. It's better than Fire Dragon. I know, hot take, but Forest Lord is better than Fire Dragon. You get a lot of good stuff with life, right? And that's why it is this high up on the list. Unfortunately, it just fell short to the other three stools. But who knows? Maybe one day they'll buff life and it will bounce back up. We'll have to see, but that's why life is number 4. Let's go to number 3. I probably have just pissed off all of the 1,000 Wolf Stormblades in Wizard101 right now. I'm putting my own stool of Storm at number 3 on the list. Now, I'm sure probably some of you were expecting me to put it at number 1. And yes, Storm is my root stool. My profile picture on YouTube is Dark and Stormy. The Dark and Stormy spell is my profile picture. Let me pull it up real quick. Where are you? There he is. Dark and Stormy. That's my profile picture. Storm is my roots. This is my first max was my Storm Wizard. I do pretty much everything in my Storm Wizard. I always release the Gear Guide videos yearly. Storm is my roots. Storm is my stool. So why do I have it at number 3? Well, it's because of questing early game. I would be lying to you right now if I said that solo questing my Storm was easy, was a breeze, was just blade and temp throughout the entire game. You do not know how many Azteca bosses I died to, how many Avalon bosses I died to, how many Chrysalis bosses I died to, how many even Celestia bosses I died to. This is a fun fact about my account, about me on Wizard. I quit the game at Celestia. I quit the game for a couple years at Celestia because there was an ice boss that I literally could not beat. I literally could not beat him. I didn't. This was before Team Up, I think, existed, so I couldn't ask anyone for help. I didn't really ask around in the comments, be like, hey, can someone help me? I didn't really do that. I didn't really like doing that. I think I maybe had too much pride back then to do that, maybe. But there was an ice boss. I could not get past him, and I quit the game for 3 years on that boss. I quit the game. That's how tough Storm questing was for me. And it's like that for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people just think of Storm at max and how they just Tempest over, right? But that's not how Storm is. Storm is a squishy stool at its core. It's a squishy stool that can die. You can die very easily. Even on some of the endgame content, right? If you don't kill fast, you can end up dying pretty quickly too. And yeah, there's health changes that circumvent that. The other two stools that are above Storm, they have versatility. You will never see a Storm support. If you don't have the best stats on a Storm, you're not going to be hitter, and you're not going to be a very good support. Like I said, with Ice, you have nothing to do on Storm as a support. You have nothing, right? You can just blade with all the universal stuff that everyone gets, or feint with all the universal feint that everyone can get, but you have nothing really special about you. You can't heal like Life can. You can't blade like Balance can. There's nothing really that unique about Storm support. You have no versatility. You will die easily, so you're not a very good support. And questing wise, it's tough. But now let's get into the reasons why Storm is an amazing stool. Storm makes the game go quick. Storm is by far the most convenient stool to have. Again, the fastest strategy in Wizard101, at least at the moment, is Scald Incendiate. That's the fastest. You will be hard-pressed to find strategies that go faster than that. But with Storm, you now have a new spell at your disposal called Bunyip's Rage, which does more damage than a Tempest on the first turn. This spell can kill almost anything on the first turn. Tempest does mass. Tempest is the bread and butter of Storm. This spell is crazy. It's probably Wizard101's most broken spell. And the reason why Tempest is so broken is because every single turn you will do more damage. You can blade, and then the next turn you will get that extra damage from your blade, and you will get the extra damage because you did an extra pip for the Tempest. Every single thing you do as a Storm will increase your damage. Even just waiting it out. You can pass and still have a buff. And that's the thing with Storm. That's what makes Storm so good. That's why when everyone thinks of hitter, they think of Storm. That's why I think Storm is the majority of people in the game. I think the majority of people in the game play Storm because it's that versatile. It's that good at hitting. Anyways, that was my long rant about Storm. Let's move on to, I forgot what number we're at, guys. I think it's number 2. So let's move on to the second best school in Wizard101. Now, I consider Myth to be one of the best schools in this game. Myth Wizards have so much at their disposal. You get Orthrus as an AoE. Now, if I put Myth this high up back in maybe 2016, 2008 to 2016, I would be a joke. Myth nowadays, ever since Orthrus was changed, Myth has just gone crazy now. Myth gets really high health. They get higher health than Storm. They get higher health than Fire. The only schools that they lessen in health to is the support schools, right? Those are the only schools. Death, Life, Balance, and Ice. Those are the only schools they lessen in health. They're number 5, which means they are pretty good. They are pretty tough. So not only are they super good at hitting, they are also very good at surviving. You could pick a Myth as your hitting school and you would be fine. You would be perfectly good. They have a severe lack of survivability when compared to the number 1 school on this list, which makes them harder to solo. With that being said, however, there are plenty of things that Myth Wizards do get. You can make an argument for, put them at the number 1 school. Myths get Pierce, Shatter, and a bunch of other different spells trained. Early game, Myths get minions, so they do have that level of survivability where you probably won't die. If you were struggling, you can summon a minion, so you're pretty much good. It would be good as support, it'd be good as a hitter, you could use it viably for both. It's just a well-rounded school, a perfectly well-rounded school. So that's why I have Myth so high, and also just because I think Cyrus is definitively the best professor. I mean, let's be fair here. He's pretty much the only professor that actually goes through a character arc in Wizard101 besides maybe Merle, but even Merle doesn't really go through one. Cyrus goes through a whole character arc. I mean, he's my favorite professor, and I think he's by far the best professor in Wizard101, in my humble opinion. But let's move on to number 1. Surprise, surprise, Death comes number 1. Now, there are a lot of people that have made a lot of school ranking videos, and I can tell you on the vast majority of them that I've watched, Death always ranks number 1, and there's plenty of good reason for it. Death's offense is its defense. It's the only school that's the case, which makes it the superior school. Its spells drain back. You have access to Scarecrow. You have access to Ship of Fools if you farm the boss for it, right? You know, obviously, Ship of Fools, definitely there's a little bit of a gatekeep there. But even if you don't have Ship of Fools, you're never going to worry about dying like you would on a Life Wizard. On a Life Wizard, you have to use a turn to heal. On a Death Wizard, you can hit and heal on the same turn. Most of your spells, you can hit and come back to life. You can be at the lowest point. You can be at 1 HP, hit with your spell, do tons of damage, and then heal all of your health back in the same turn. That's what makes Death so insanely powerful, and maybe you don't pick them as a hitting school. I know when I'm farming stuff, I don't really pick Death as the hitter. I usually pick Storm as the hitter because you want to get things done fast. Death is capable of being a hitter. Death is not just a school that's incapable of it. You might not pick them as your first hitter, you might not pick them as your second hitter, but you can definitely pick Death as a hitting school. It can work as a hitting school, and it can work as a support school. One of the best spells that Death gets in the game is Bad Juju. It is one of the best schools to Jade on. It can sometimes be better to Jade on a Death than a Life Wizard. It can be better to Jade on a Death. And the reason for that is you can just spam Bad Juju on any enemy that threatens to kill you, and you will win doing that. It is an insane strat. Spells like Feint, where you think would punish a Death Wizard because you add traps to yourself, Well, if those traps are used by the enemy, so what? I can just heal it all back with my drain. That's what makes Death so powerful and such a unique stool in Wizard 101. I think that Death is the best stool. Now, I'm not saying that this is definitive. There are definitely circumstances where Death can honestly be the worst stool to have in a fight. But there is more scenarios where Death is a good stool than Death is a bad stool. But you'll be hard-pressed to find a scenario that Death just is awful in. You won't find one. So that was my ranking video for all 7 stools in Wizard 101. Now, if you couldn't tell, this video was completely unscripted. It was mostly just me rambling like an idiot for most of it. Thank you very much for watching until the end. If you agree with me, tell me in the comments. And if you disagree with me, tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear feedback. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions. If you love the Stool of Ice or you hate the Stool of Death, your opinion is valid. You play the game how you want to play. I'm not trying to tell anyone how they're supposed to play the game or how the game is supposed to be. These are just my takes. Thank you for hearing my opinion out. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you can like and subscribe the video, it helps me out so much, guys. I really want to get to 500 subscribers by the summer. I think we can do it. I think we can maybe even do it long before the summer. So if you want to help me out and subscribe and like the video, thank you very much. And share my content if you would like to. Share it in Discord. Share it wherever you want. Anyways, my rant is over now. If you enjoyed the video, please just leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone, and have a good day.